Low-quality fans of a high-quality Bruins team, welcome back. I am sorry. Genuinely, I am sorry. I've missed the last two games. There's been no reviews for those. I'm hoping to do a review for the one tonight. I have been horribly sick for the past few days, just lying in bed, either sweating to death or freezing to death, just trying to figure out which way my body wants to go. I'm going to be out of breath for a lot of this video. Everything's not done with me yet. We are still planning on doing a long live stream tomorrow from about 10 a.m. to 5-ish p.m. where we go over the rest of the trade deadline. Today, what we're going to talk about is what happened on Wednesday, and we're going to grade some of these trades. But I do sincerely apologize that I've been missing for about a week now. It's been a tough go. And, as you know, just as a reminder, but Monday next week or Tuesday next week, I fly out and I'm gone for 2 weeks. So there won't be game reviews during that time. I'm hoping to still sneak in some content, but we'll see how that goes because we will be across the world in Thailand. Make your jokes. It's fine. It should be a good time for everybody. That's why I'm just hoping to get healthy again for that. But let's talk about some trades. This trade deadline has not disappointed. It has gone a different direction than I expected because I thought with the way cap space had been a premium, that teams would have to pay out the ass to get cap moved around. Hasn't really been that. It's been 4th or 5th round picks to do so. I think a lot of people are expecting the cap to make a leap, as we've talked about. So it's been easier for them to kind of be like, here, I'll give you a middling pick. The money's going to come off the books at the end of the year, or even if it doesn't, which I don't think we've seen a trade where it doesn't yet. But even if it doesn't, you're going to have room next year if you're not good. We've seen teams make real decisions, which we're going to talk about as far as what direction they're taking this season and what direction they're going forward. But let's just start breaking them down. And remember, this is going to be outdated pretty quickly. These things happened, but you're going to see more trades by the time you actually see this video. This is about Wednesday's stuff and the Edmonson trade that just happened as well. I'm going to break down. But let's start at the beginning, because the beginning's a good place to start. Where Anthony Mantha, of all people, kicked this whole thing off. He's going to the Vegas Golden Knights. Mantha is a disappointing player. Let's just generally say it, right? Big body, power forward, has the tools, just seems like he's in the right spot all the time and can make the play, and just doesn't. Just can't put it all together. He's got 20 goals this year, playing largely on a fourth line role, which is awesome. It's a great time for a career year for him. Career year. He's had better seasons previously. But this, to me, is not what's moving the needle. Now, this is good for Vegas, don't get me wrong, but bringing in Mantha, like if you win the cup with Mantha, it's probably not because of Mantha. Now, that could bite me on the ass, and you could absolutely see him getting hot for one stretch, and then, oh man, what a great move. I think the likelihood of this one is that it's just a guy who, he'll bang some bodies, he's a useful depth piece, don't get me wrong, but is not going to move the needle much at all. This is not a big trade to me. Some people made it out to be like this big thing, but it ends up being a 2nd and a 4th for 50% retainment from the Caps. That feels right? That just feels right. This is a fine little trade to kick everything off. Vegas, I'd grade that as a B-, right? You get some depth, nothing crazy. A 2nd round pick is a real asset, but you got the retainment on it that left you more space to do more moves. So, worthwhile. And the Caps get a B because you got a 2nd and a 4th for a guy that you weren't keeping around. Good asset management. Easy peasy, easy way to start. And then, directly after that, sort of a bombshell. Tarasenko, from the Senators, is going to go to the Panthers. This was a huge one because a lot of people wanted Tarasenko. I wasn't one of those people, but a lot of people did. He is not what he used to be. He's a middle 6 player now, which is fine, because he's especially useful with how he finds the net during 5-on-5 play. Now, of course, he's not lighting up the score sheet right now, but he's solid, and it could turn into a real steal, because surrounded by the kind of talent, and reports are he's already taking reps on the first line with Florida, moving Reinhart over to his opposite side. If you're worried about him defensively, let's just say you didn't get him for his defensive prowess. If you expect him to defend anybody, the results are going to be your fault, no one else's. The book's out on him. He can't defend. He's butt cheeks in his own zone. That's fine, because that's who the player is. I'm surprised you're putting him on the first line right away, but when you have Barkov, that covers a lot of deficiencies defensively. Right away. This is a great get for the Panthers, I think. And it's even better because what it cost was a third if they win the cup, and another third. That's an absolute steal if you just look at it in a vacuum. But then you consider the fact that Tarasenko probably forced his way there. They probably said, that's where I'm going. That's the only place I'd consider extending. Like, I have a no trade clause. I can make this determination. You don't get to move me unless I go where I want to go. Florida caught wind of that. Low price. We see that every year. We are, because no trade clauses and no movement clauses are being given out a lot. I think we're starting to see GMs go, man, these are risky. Because you have an asset like Tarasenko that was highly coveted by a lot of teams, if the reports are correct, and you got nothing for him. 2 middling picks that have a 5% chance to turn into an NHL player? That's not good enough. Getting something rather than nothing matters and mattered? Great. You're certainly disappointed if you're a Senators fan. If you're a Panthers fan, an absolute A grade for this. Because this is a low cost, throw them into the lineup, easy peasy, you make your team better. A top 10 offense just got even better. Especially at 5-on-5. And Reinhardt's on a heater to end all heaters, so not too shabby. Otto, a grade, I'd give him a D. I mean, you got something for him, but come on, that's not enough. That's just not enough. That's disappointing to say the least. And look, the circumstances are the circumstances. I shouldn't be overly critical because you worked with what you had, but at the end of the day, you can't be a Senators fan and be happy with that, right? There's no way you're happy with that return. You can understand it, but you're not going to be happy with it. We'll move on to a team that is basically doing everything right, I think. The Avalanche made 2 trades so far. The first one being Sean Walker and a 5th to Colorado for Ryan Johansson and a 1st. This is excellent work by both teams. The Flyers get a 1st for Walker and take it on a contract that the Avs desperately wanted to get out from under. There's 1 more year left on it. Avs get a serviceable defenseman in Walker and open up space for more moves, which you'd expect them to make. If they don't use that space, absolutely. It's a different conversation. You raise an eyebrow going, okay, well, it better come in use next year because you should be going all in right now, and they should be going all in right now. But Johansson wasn't just a terrible fit on the ice. There's reports that he was a terrible fit off the ice as well. If that's true, it's a move you genuinely had to make. I like the trade both ways. I'm especially impressed by Philly, who's not waving the white flag on the season, but they're making a tough choice. They are taking on cap. They are shipping out guys who have been good for them to gain more assets. They aren't ending their season, but they are making their team a little less competitive here with a couple of moves that they've made. At the end of the day, I think they're making the right choice for their future. They're not going all in on a season where they're overproducing, where they're doing better than they were expected to. They want the Flyers to be consistently great. This isn't the year to pull in a bunch of talent and try to keep the train moving. I think they're doing an excellent job of walking that line of, okay, we'll take some stuff on. This year's probably not our year. We'll stay competitive, but you know what I mean? I think that's a really hard choice to make, especially with a Flyer fan base that, I mean, they're present, man. The league's a better place when the Flyers are good. Don't get me wrong, screw them. The Flyers, screw them. But the league's a better place when that fan base has a good team to root for. They're moving in that direction, and they're doing it the right way, in my opinion. Also, not for nothing, they've got a Sean Monahan situation on their hands. They take this guy in, Johansson, they take him in. They've got 1 more year. If he plays well for them to start of next year, they get to flip him at the deadline for more assets, and I think they can retain more money. I think he can be retained again. So, regardless, there's a chance to get more assets out of this. Not a bad bit of work, in my opinion. Both teams get a B+. Good work, lads. Good work. And then the Avalanche's other trade. My favorite trade, because it's a real hockey trade, right? Buffalo receives Bowen Byrum. Avs receive Casey Middlestat. Both players are young, are team-controlled RFAs at the end of the year, This trade will be analyzed for years to come. A 22-year-old defenseman in Byrum with top pair potential who's having a down year for a 25-year-old center who was pushed down to the third line by 2 star center prospects that jumped into the NHL. That's just an interesting trade at the end of the day. He is, not to mention, Mittelstadt's been leading that team in points, playing mostly third line minutes. Is Mittelstadt as good as he's been this year? Probably not. I don't think so. Will he look great surrounded by the forward talent that the Avs have? Yeah, I think he will. Is Byrum as bad as he's looked this year? No, I don't think so. 22 years old, defenseman. They tend to have weird years in their early 20s. The Avs are just in win now mode. They didn't like the fit with Byrum. They're high on what they're bringing in to replace him. They move him. How long have we talked about, since Kadri left, actually, we've talked about the Avs. They need that 2C. They need a strong 2C. They think that they're getting that in Mittelstadt. And how long for the Sabres have we talked about they need more defensive talent? Long-term defensive talent. Well, they think they've just locked that up. They extend Byrum. They've got a real top 4 now. This is a trade that makes sense for both sides. Technically, I think the Sabres win out because I would rather have the 22-year-old defenseman with top pair qualities than the 25-year-old center who's having a career year right now. All that being said, it might end up being pretty close in the long term. I'm going to give the Sabres an A and the Avs a B+. Either way, neither side should be upset. This is solving the holes that each team has. It's a good trade. And I really wonder how that conversation went between the two GMs because I bet they were both smiling at the end. It's kind of, yeah, you get what you need. I get what I need. Why not? Why not? Not a bad trade and something that we get to keep an eye on for years because eventually this is either going to kind of wash out as, yeah, this was great for both teams, or one team is going to really, really regret it. And those are always fun trades, especially when your team is not involved in them. Let's talk about my least favorite trade of the day. This is a 3-teamer, but the move basically shakes out to Adam Henrik, Sam Carrick, and a 7th go to the Oilers for a 2024 first and a conditional 2025 5th. Tampa gets a 4th for a finder's fee, a retainment on the Henrik contract. This is the closest thing to an overpay I think we've seen, and it's not egregious by any means, but it's the closest thing. Especially when I thought the market was going to be different this year. I thought this was going to be closer to what the market was going to be. But Henrik isn't worth a first, in my opinion. But he does offer some much-needed depth to that Oilers team. I'd expect his defense to look a lot better with some of the matchups he's been getting because he's been asked to do too much for the Ducks, in my opinion. So, at the end of the day, this is what the Oilers needed, and giving up a first when you think your cup window is wide open, like, whatever. Screw them picks, man. Why are we concerned about that? If people are harping on this trade, it's the wrong approach. Do I think it's a slight overpayment, given the deals we've seen around town? Sure. It should not ruffle anyone's feathers, though, I guess is what I'm getting at here. Sam Carrick does nothing for me. I'd be surprised if he's in the lineup game 1, round 1. That's fine. But Edmonton, I'd give a grade of C. Bit of an overpay, but nothing egregious. Just gets a player that they need. And then for the Ducks, maybe an A. It's a first for Henrik, and it's exactly what they wanted. And they got it. That was the best that they were going to get, is a late first-round pick, right? Whether it be for Vancouver or Boston or whatever. Boston doesn't have a first, but you know what I mean. The best they were going to get. I actually probably would have liked for them to go after a team's first that was down the road, like a 2025, 2026 kind of, hey, maybe this team has a bad year, we can mix it up there. Because it just doesn't look like the Oilers are going to lose in the first round, you know? This next one's a bit of a nothing trade. Wenberg for a 2nd and a conditional 4th. Wienerberg's a legend in my house. He's going to go to the Rangers for a 2nd and a 4th. That 4th becomes a 3rd if Lundqvist has like 20 points in his next 20 games. No clue why this stipulation is a thing, but I kind of love it. Wenberg is a depth piece. He was tasked with doing way too much in Seattle, another player where I think he was playing above his station at times. So a more sheltered role may make this trade look a little better in hindsight. A late 2nd and a 4th is fine. Teams see the statistics of how often these picks actually turn into players, and I think they're kind of understanding that, the later that second is, the odds just drop and drop and drop and drop. Rangers get a useful depth piece, albeit not a flashy one, and Seattle gets more cracks at the can at a draft. Fair is fair. This seems one of the easiest trades, just be like, B. A B for each of you. You got what you needed. Seattle, you're not doing much this year. I don't think Wenberg was going to get much more than that by any means. So I think we can walk away from saying that's just a fair deal for both sides. And then the most aggravating deal for probably everybody who's watching this, Noah Hanifin is going to Vegas. I think Bruce Cassidy, I don't know how he's involved in this, but he's got to be laughing a little bit, right? Bruce Cassidy is now coaching a team with Jack Eichel and Noah Hanifin, and he's not in Boston. Like, if you told me that 5 years ago, that, like, those three were going to be on the same team, I'm like, we got Jack Eichel and Noah Hanifin? Hell yeah. Nope, not how that worked. This trade boils down to Hanifin for Manov, a conditional first that might be as late as 2026, depending on if Vegas trades their 2025 first. I don't know if I've ever seen a conditional like that, where they're like, hey, you get this year's pick unless we trade it. Brother, you just traded it. That was the point. I don't know. A conditional third that will be second if Vegas gets past the first round. So let's just call that a second. I think that's a fair assumption. And the Flyers get a fifth for retainment. Vegas gets the rights to Vorobayov, I think, who's just a body that needed to be moved. That's nothing really to consider there. What Vegas got is the best left defenseman on the market, while keeping enough space and assets to get a high-end forward too, such as Gensel. This is great work by them. We'll give credit where credit is due. 26-year-old Manov was likely out the door anyway. A first and a likely second for Hanifin to put together what might be the most balanced top four in the league. Yeah, done and done. Absolutely. That first means nothing to them when their window is wide open, and a first was always going to be part of this deal, and I'm surprised there wasn't a blue chip prospect involved somewhere. Maybe not even blue chip, but like a guy you really liked. Nope, nothing like it. And now Calgary, on Calgary's side, has now shipped off Lindholm, Hanifin, and Tanev. And are any of us all that impressed by what they got back? Now look, this isn't fair. This shouldn't affect the grade of this one trade, but it sort of does. In a vacuum, this trade is fine. They got the first that they wanted. It's a little underwhelming, but they had arguably two of the best three assets this deadline, and maybe three of the top 8 assets, depending on where you ranked Tanev, and they didn't receive any prospect you'd be pumped about, or anyone you really consider the real deal. The first-round picks that they did get will likely be number 20 or later. The deadline isn't a disaster for them, but it just doesn't feel like a win. It just doesn't. There's some pieces that could get better and could be exciting, and there's just nothing in there out of those 3 players leaving that you were really excited about. And out of those 3 guys, you'd really expect something. And actually, they might be one of the biggest reasons that this seems to be a buyer's market, because if they forced teams' hands and raised the price, it might have raised the price across the league. But that Tanev deal, not a lot going on there, and I think it just shrunk everything down. It's just Calgary's luck, though. Maybe they did it to themselves. But it is Calgary's luck that the year that they needed to move a bunch of pieces is a buyer's market. That team can't catch a break. They really can't. Vegas, you get an A+. Great work. Great work here. And the Flames, you get a C. You had to move them. You got assets. You should have walked away from this deadline with something. Something real. And I just don't love what they've got. Not a disaster, just not good enough. There is one other trade that happened this morning, Thursday morning, that I want to talk about. The Maple Leafs are acquiring defenseman Joel Edmonson from the Capitals in exchange for the Islanders' 2024 third-round pick and the 2025 fifth-round pick. Joel Edmonson is a big body. He's a big boy. He's a physical defenseman. I also think he's been really, really bad for years. I don't like that player. And the Bruins supposedly were in on him and were very close to a deal, which I think we should have come to expect, that we're a lot like the Islanders in this regard. It doesn't mean shit when someone says, hey, the Bruins are close on this guy. It doesn't mean anything. The Bruins are usually pretty tight-lipped, I would say. That being said, I am so glad this wasn't us that did this. A third and a fifth isn't the end of the world, by any means. But I'm not really looking to give up assets for a guy who would be a Wotherspoon downgrade. Wotherspoon, I've really liked. I think a lot of us have. And he has his moments, don't get me wrong. He is still a third pairing, technically rookie-ish, sort of rookie-ish. I don't need Edmonson on this team. I don't. So that's my thoughts on that. I know a lot of people are the big tough body. Big tough body hasn't really helped him recently, I would say. His numbers are abysmal. Anyway, just for a couple Bruins notes, Forbort is day-to-day, which is suspicious. Lindholm is skating with the team, but is not quite ready, but should be ready soon. Excellent. That's about it, right? I don't think there's any other Bruins notes. Oh, there's a rumor of a three-way deal where Lindholm comes to us and DeBrusk's out the door. I have been very vocal about not being super jazzed about Elias Lindholm, and if he wants a $9 million a year extension, I would stay away from giving up assets for him. I don't think he's worth that. I don't think he's worth close to that. And I know the cap's going up, but hey, it ain't going up that much, and we have a ton of roles to fill next year, some of which are expensive. Elias Lindholm is not a 1C to me. He's a good 2C that I don't want to spend $9 million a year on. Okay. More videos might be coming out today, depending on how it goes. Tomorrow, live stream, 10 a.m. I don't really have a plan here. I have been in a coma for days, so we'll see how it goes. Go Bees. Go Bees! Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching, but it is time to give a shout out to our high-quality inspectors. We've got our top line tier inspectors. We got Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Coach D, the Bugman, the Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Aaron Adams, Just Aaron, Darren Woodbury, Brett Arney, Pinsen, and Nick Citrullo. Thank you guys so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. And of course, massive props to these absolute stallions, the all-star tier inspectors. We have Bruin Smash, Jason Ozzie, Bruin Connolly, Hyle E. Coyote, Adam Ella, Jonathan Harvey, Joel, Abraxion, Jacob Pratt, Tupton D. Tashi, D.A. Kingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, Doots42, and Jeremy. You guys are absolute studs. I can't thank you enough, and go Bees.